So today, nothing crazy. We have like 3 calls to get done. Two which are maintenances on systems. One's natural gas, one's propane. This particular system here that we're checking out today is natural gas. So you can see it's a 90% furnace, and you can tell usually that it's 90% and or high efficiency if it has white PVC venting to the outside. If it doesn't go into a chimney, um, that'll kind of indicate that it's a condensing equipment if it has PVC venting to the outside. And condensing equipment typically tends to be on the higher efficiency side because of how it burns the fuels and what it actually does through the combustion process, and that's kind of where you get your efficiency from. So just a couple of things that we checked during the basic heating maintenance. I mean, it's nothing crazy. So we obviously checked the resistance of the igniter. You can tell this igniter has been replaced once before because it does have wire nuts attached to it, and they cut it in splices. So we want to make sure that resistance is good. So we usually disconnect right here, disconnected at the actual igniter. You'll take your meter and just kind of verify the resistance between the 2 points. So all we want is resistance. Usually an igniter that's, I guess a cold igniter, I will call it, about 89, almost 90 in resistance. It's a little high in my preference, but I'll mention it to the customer. So slightly high, nothing crazy. Because you gotta think of that igniter gets hit with 120 volts every time, and it'll glow. Over time, it just kind of deteriorates. It's normal when turning an igniter. Then we obviously check the air hoses, cleaning the air hoses. They're connected to pressure switches, whether it is positive or negative pressure switches. I tend to take all those off and clean them out. Also in here, you can see there's condensate hoses right here. This condensate hose, that condensate hose, and this condensate hose, they all get cleaned out. This little guy you see right here, this is actually the condensate trap. So this is the trap that is created so that the condensate can drain properly, and that needs to be cleaned out as well. Obviously the reason why we want a trap is because these condensate, obviously there's exhaust being produced through here, right? So through the fuel burning process, we condensate, but now we don't want any of this condensation to escape into the space, so we don't just let it be, going down to the pump, which he has right there. We need a condensate trap, and just to allow the the condensation. That pump has been changed once before. Yeah, it's been changed before. We, like I said, we check pressure switch hoses, both positive and negative pressure switch hoses. We also like to check the fuel. We check the to make sure we have the proper inches of water column at both the manifold and the incoming. So incoming will be here before the gas valve. Your manifold will be here after the gas valve. So those two areas we check out. And that little buzzing you hear over there, that's actually my combustion analyzer, because I actually want to make sure that we're burning the fuel properly. And we're actually going to, I believe my last call was actually a propane call, so we're gonna have to change this. And I don't know why I gotta send this to E-Instruments, but the time is always wrong here. I don't even know what time is it right now. 8:32. Do we gotta change that? 8:32. It's always just messed up. There we go. 8:32, and today is actually the 12th. Today is December 1st. There we go. You always want to make sure this is correct, because God forbid, like, let's say something happens, this needs to be used, like, for whatever reason, for, purposes like legal purposes or anything like that. You want to make sure this is as accurate as possible. You also want to calibrate these every year. No matter what combustion analyzer you have, you always want to calibrate it every year. If it's not calibrated, at least in that year, something happens within that 1 year, even though you have a history of what you did, it's invalid, because it wasn't calibrated. So definitely get it calibrated every year if you get a chance. So now we're gonna go back. Analysis, fuel. This is actually natural gas. So the most common that you're gonna find is natural gas, propane, or oil around this area. So natural gas. Go back. Okay. So humidifier is not being used. So we're gonna leave it the way it is. Actually, we're gonna leave it in the off position. And now typically I will hook up a secondary K-type thermistor in there and attach it to the intake to make sure that we're reading the fuel air. Not the fuel air. I'm sorry. The air from the outside. So obviously the air from the inside is a lot different than the air from the outside. It's colder outside, right? So your delta is going to be a little bit different. So certain things are going to be a little bit different. But you can see in this one, they are actually using the combustion air from within the basement, which is sufficient enough. I mean, it's a wide open basement. It's not finished or anything like that, to allow it to combust. So we're grabbing the air from here, sending it down to the combustion chamber, and that's how we're combusting the airs, right? So what do you need for combustion? There's three things you need for combustion, right? So you need fuel, you need a spark, and you need air. Those three things make up your combustion sequence. So right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this cover back on. I already checked the blower motor. We changed the filter form. We cleaned the condensate lines. We checked the transformer voltage. Check the other transformer voltage, even though the humidifier is not being used. They're using that for a humidifier. So that settles that. So we're gonna put this guy back on. Here. So whenever you turn on the unit, some manufacturers will tell you to wait like 5 minutes before you put your probe in. I personally don't think it matters unless there's something excessively wrong with the combustion and that thing spikes up to 5,000 parts per million during the startup. You'll see the number right here on the CO spike up during the startup, but that's when it first combusts. I'll let it run for 5 minutes and then see where my numbers are at, if they're within proper specs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this back on, and I already cleaned the pump, and I poured some bleach down there just to kind of trigger it and kind of flush some of the stuff down. So right now my inducer motor's going. So inducer motor's going, or it went. I think it's still going for heat. I'm gonna have to go upstairs and check. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go upstairs and check. Okay, I'm gonna go upstairs and check the thermostat. I'll be right back. So inducer's going. Let's check real quick. Select. .73. 0.7. Acceptable. So now you can see it spiked up quite a bit. So about 300, but it seems dropping down significantly. So we're gonna take a look at the oxygen, and we want to take a look at the CO2 percentage. We're not too worried about efficiency total and all that stuff. We're looking at these three numbers particularly right here. But you can see that it's already dropping. So we're gonna let it run for another 5 minutes. Make sure that it stabilizes correctly, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I like to do on the maintenance is make sure all your safeties work. You have your high limit switch back there. Some furnaces are different. This guy's a little bit older than most. But definitely clean the flame sensor, which is located actually on the right hand side on this one. Most of the time you'll find that the igniter, it's on the right hand side, and the flame rod is on the left hand side of the units. Some, however, would have it opposite. And again, that's because depending on where the gas valve starts, that's where you have your igniter from, because that'll be the first burner it kind of hits. Obviously in this case, they you know, it's a little bit different. But that's the high limit sensor back there. You have your pressure switches, which obviously your pressure switches help determine what exactly is going on with the draft. And you know, if the inducer motor wasn't running, you'll get a pressure switch error code, or those guys won't close. They have a diaphragm inside, and they open and close based on suction and air pressure, right? So it'll be a typically normally open contact, it'll close. And then if you have a high efficiency furnace or 90% furnace, you'll typically find two pressure switches, positive and negative pressure switches. And again, it's just, you can see that this particular switch is actually hooked up to the chamber, the chamber, so to make sure that obviously we have enough combustion air and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, even though this guy's old, still has got a pretty good amount of safety switches built into it. There's rollout sensors located on the inside and on the side here. So that little brown guy right there you see there, it's a rollout. So in the event that the flame was to come back or rolled out, it'll overheat and trip in that limit, and then obviously telling you there's a problem. So yeah, filter's already been changed, so we took care of that. But yeah, I mean, just like a basic maintenance, nothing crazy. I do want to hit every point on the maintenance just to make sure that obviously they're going to have issues. A lot of the common ones are that they don't, you know, the flame sensor is dirty, so it'll cause like a short cycling issue where it'll come on, come off, come on, come off. It's just, you know, the flame rod needs to be cleaned out periodically. The condensate lines will be clogged up. That's another very common issue. Your igniter can go bad. That's another common thing that just happen. So we want to just check all these points that are common issues that I come to in the field, that are make sure that it's not going to have an issue later on for him in the wintertime. So that's kind of like the whole purpose behind my maintenances and what I do. Particularly, like, I don't go crazy and check, like, you know, I mean, I'm doing a combustion analysis just because it's just how I've always done. I just like to be on the safe side. You know, in my previous company, it was like mandatory. Like every maintenance that we did, we had to do a combustion analysis, which is nice. I mean, it's nice. This particular, you know, unit, it's aged. But again, I don't think there's anything majorly wrong with it. Obviously, there's some kind of leakage down here. At one point there was, but it seems like that collector box has been changed before. So I think that might have been causing the problem. Yeah, but we're just gonna check over everything, just to make sure everything's good. You know, so right now we're about oxygen. That's pretty good. I mean, my oxygen would be on 8. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Make sure that's all good. And yeah, I mean, that's just my basic maintenances. You know, nothing crazy. And then you know, I'll show you guys the attic system on this house when I go up there. This is the basement unit. There's 2 units here, so I'll go up to the attic afterwards. Okay, so we're now in the attic space. You can tell because it's the attic. This is why I don't like 90% units in an attic. As I stated before, 90% units condensate. They create condensation. Obviously, when a furnace runs, we're trying to provide you with heat. So the attic space tends to get very cold, especially if it's not insulated like it is right now. So it's all open, like it's cold right now up here compared to the rest of the house. Obviously, this is considered an unconditioned space. We have an unconditioned space. It can be prone to freezing. Example, you put a 90% unit in the attic, which creates condensation. Okay, condensation creates water. Water can freeze if the temperature gets to a certain level, right? So let me see if I can flip this. Okay. My knees. I'm getting old. So you can see they have an intake and exhaust. They go outside. But if you take a look at here in the furnace, put that condensate line, condensate line, condensate line. If you remember on the one downstairs, there was a singular trap for all three of these, and they all went into a trap. The trap then went out to the main discharge on the pump, right? So in here, they individually placed a trap. You can see here. So this is you can make this. It has a U-shaped bend here on each one of these. This one, and this one, going into a common pipe. You can tell obviously has frozen before. Some other stuff has happened, and you can tell all this insulation wrapped up around it and stuff. Sometimes they try to put a like a heat wire on it, and it goes all the way over there, all the way down there. Obviously this was done for a reason. This is not how the unit comes out of factory. So we're gonna see what are other better options to do this, but I mean it'll work, it's just not ideal. And we gotta check again pressure switches, clean the flame sensor, which is now located on the right hand side, but you can see that this is where the gas valve starts. There's your igniter right there. So we're gonna check all that stuff. And then the filter, how many? Also, I don't like humidifiers up in the attic, and that's been actually closed off. Customer told me that doesn't work for that particular reason, because it froze. The line froze down there. So obviously, again, no humidifiers in the attic. There's other ways to provide you with humidity from that, because your only option is to insulate this whole attic with spray foam or anything like that that will keep the space conditioned. Then you can have a 90% furnace and do whatever you want. Ideally you want an 80% here going right up the roof, and then that's it, because an 80% does not create condensation. But yeah, we gotta do a few more things here. Check gas lines, check all this other stuff, check all the safety switches here, make sure that all that's operational. Check the blower, amperage on the motors, both inducer and the blower motor, and we'll change the filters and make sure that they're good to go. Also, just a quick note, opposite to this one, this takes the intake from the outside. So you can see, like, I've attached a K-type thermocouple to my outdoor intake piping. So now we're actually measuring the air from the outside, which air 57 degrees, filters are around 32 degrees, temperature on my stack is about 90 degrees. Yeah. And you can see we start to condensate water here. Make sure you empty this out. Don't hook that up with it full, because then your pump will suck it up. That's pretty good. No parts per million. Alright, so we just finished at this customer's house for the 2 heating maintenances. It wasn't anything crazy. One thing that I did forget to mention is I also do what is called a temperature difference. So a temperature rise test. So basically you take your probe, your temperature probe, put in the supply, put in the return. You can do post or pre-filter. I like to do it post filter just because you get the true, temperature rise across the filter. So just to take a difference in temperature, and the manufacturer, you typically have a range anywhere between like 30 to 60 degrees. It's acceptable between the difference in supply and return. But yeah, everything checked out fine. Like I said, there was some issues with the 90% unit upstairs. And I asked him, did you ever have like leaking issues or any water issues upstairs in the attic? He's like, yeah, I did. So sure enough, it's, that's why I don't like to do 90% in the attic, unless you're planning on like insulating your attic. Then that's a different story, right? But yeah, so right now, my next call, we are going to, we replaced the thermostat yesterday. The company replaced the thermostat yesterday, and now the unit is not heating up. It's a boiler. Previous text said there was nothing going on when we jumped out TT at the boiler. So it's a callback, hopefully nothing crazy. We'll check it out and see what's going on. and see if we can find anything else besides what the other technician found, and hopefully get those people back up and running. But yeah, today, like I said, today is just gonna be just probably gonna make this like a maintenance video. I don't know if I'll take some shots of the next call and see what that is, as far as the callback there. But yeah, nothing crazy. Schedule looks pretty light, so we'll take it call by call, and yeah, we'll keep going. I mean, these videos are gonna be probably cringe as hell in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie. But it's just to show technicians like on the field like what to look for, or what the maintenance should consist of. Like obviously when I go to a maintenance, I look for things that could potentially be a problem, like in the winter season. Make sure that we avoid those problems before they become a problem. But nothing crazy. I mean, obviously this challenge is going to be to teach either the younger guys that want to get in the trade, or the people that are in the trade that want a bit more experience. Obviously I don't know everything. No way, shape, or form am I some sort of super tech. Hell no. But I am experienced enough so that where I can share my knowledge and try to help other people. Whether you're a technician, or an apprentice or whatever, or even a homeowner that you're kind of a DIY guy and you think that you can do some stuff on your own. I don't condone like homeowners working on their stuff, but hey, if I can teach you how to clean out a flame sensor and you're going through a tough time and I can save you a couple $100 from having a technician come out and do stuff like that, then go ahead, clean out your flame sensor. I mean, I'm not the only YouTuber, or now there's Google, so you can go and pretty much just search on your own. But yeah, I mean, this channel is just primarily going to be to try to help out people. It's not going to be anything crazy or anything like that. It's going to focus strictly on HVAC. What a technician kind of deals with on a daily basis, whether that's a forced air system, a boiler, a steam boiler, hydronic coil system, a heat pump system. Even though Jersey doesn't have too many heat pumps, unless this area where I particularly work on now, there's a lot of like different fuel sources. Like there's oil, there's propane. You do come occasionally across your heat pump system. Some of them even have like dual fuel, where you have like a primary heat pump system, but then like some houses will have a secondary backup source, like for example oil or propane or something like that. Those can be tricky. Like the wiring, like shits that I find like with this stuff, it's insane. Like it just it blows my mind. I'm like, how did this fucking thing work? Like limits fucking on plenums, try to break W connections on the oil burners, and it's just all sorts of things. But yeah, so hopefully you can get something out of this. And if you guys like it, I'll keep doing this things like this and try to teach whatever I can teach and whatever knowledge I can share. All right.